welcome back to Moore Up North. Joe McGinniss, of course, our guest here, who is re-releasing a great book, Going to Extremes, about Alaska, and we're talking a bit about that. And I'm really glad Tom Brennan, editor, Anchorage Daily Planet, and former editor of the Anchorage Times, is here with us. Tom worked with Joe over 45 years ago at the, how do you say it, Worcester? Worcester. Worcester Telegram in Massachusetts. Joe told Tom, you'll never make it through a winter out there at one point. Yeah, and Hugh Fleischer is here. And he has actually mentioned the book. You just showed up tonight and you said, hey, I'm the lawyer for the North Slope Borough School District. And of course, heard Joe was going to be here, so came in and revisited. So welcome.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
So tell me about this. You're the lawyer on the North Slope. How was it for you to read what Joe had written about you?
Well, I thought it was great, actually. We met Joe at Tom and Marnie's place, because they lived right across the alley from us. And we had a discussion, and he came up to Barrow, and we had a wonderful time up there.
And Joe, do you remember this all?
Like it was yesterday. So you see what I get for trying to protect his privacy but not mentioning him in the book, right? 30 years later, he's out here. But no, we had a good time. Actually, Tom and I spent a night in Barrow at the Top of the World Motel. Mm-hmm. This was on, I guess, the fourth day after the grocery store singular had run out of food in Barrow, and the toilets were not functioning. It hadn't been for several months, and the rooms were heated to about 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and we got there.
It sounds lovely. Is that on the brochure?
And what we did was we had a pack of wintergreen lifesavers, and we divvied them out. This was, Tom, for you. That was our dinner in Barrow, was sharing a pack of wintergreen lifesavers.
They were his lifesavers, but he shared.
Well, yeah, so, you know, Tom got me the plane ride, so. I said, okay, now this is the last frontier where you have to share lifesavers. You know, I think
that's why they call them that.
It sure saved us that night. And I stayed longer because then I got involved with Hugh and some of the work he was doing, and I went to a borough meeting, and then I got involved with the school board and met the school superintendent. John Antonin was his name, right?
John Antonin, exactly.
School superintendent. Yep. Spent a couple days with him, and I just met other people who were living in Barrow, and a lot of them are hard to forget. You know, it's, there was a lot of people were right on the, very much on the edge, psychologically. You know, it's not the people who are drawn there may not be the most stable people to begin with. I mean, the white people. I'm not talking about the natives, but the white people who choose to go there for whatever reason. They find it pretty tough because they're on the other end of racial prejudice. You know, the people in Barrow, you know, you definitely felt, you know, walking along the street there that people were looking down at you because of the color of your skin. And I found that a very interesting thing to go through because, you know, in the lower 48, a white person would never get to experience that. And it gave me a nice perspective on racism, I think. But one night, I knew I'd been there too long when I heard the plane from Fairbanks come in at the airport. You can always hear when the plane comes in. And all at once I said, that's it. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get on that flight. You know, I can't live another day here. And I grabbed all my stuff and I ran and I got a seat on the flight. And as I say, I went back in June. But other than light and darkness, warm and cold, the essence of Barrow was pretty much unchanged. And, I thought describing it once was enough.
So how was it for you, Tom, reading in this book? Of course, you drove to Alaska in a camper. and went 10 miles an hour, you're that guy
Yes.
that I always get behind when I'm like, you're coming between me and my halibut, bucko. Pull over. There's 5 cars. It's against the law. I have yet to see someone pulled over for blocking traffic with the Winnebago, by the way.
And this was
And it was you.
Gravel road, and so it's throwing up all this dust, and you can't see, so you can't pull around and go through.
So how was it for you? And of course, you and Joe were friends from far before, and here you go on this adventure to Alaska.
Well,
How was it for you to read this book?
well, it was really a lot of fun, you know, because I spent a lot of time with Joe when he was up here to write the book, gathering all his information, and you know, and it was just sort of his impressions of what was going on and what all these people were like, and it was a hoot. I really enjoyed it.
Did you hear any of the feedback too of people that were fussing about this being written?
Yeah, some of them were complaining to me but because he mentioned me. But, you know, I work for an oil company, and, you know, I figure, well, you know, you get called a lot of things. I figure, you know, call me in, just don't call me late for dinner.
Yeah, I would never call anyone that worked for an oil company something bad.
No.
I'm kidding. No, I think, you know, in looking back at this being written, and you were saying 16 years old, and now we're at 50. How much do you think things have changed from when Joe wrote this book? Because in Homer, I'm not getting the big difference. There's still the war between the bars and the churches. It's still there. It's going to be there, hopefully forever, because it keeps them fighting about other things.
Well, I was hoping that Joe was going to do a sequel and go back and visit all those places, and he has visited quite a few of them, including one I wanted to ask him about, Talkeetna, you know, which was he went back to several times and was there and wrote a beautiful piece about in the book. And my impression is that these places haven't changed all that much. But of course, I've been here 43 years, and you know, when you're only looking at it one day at a time, I'd love, you know, having this time where your good friend comes back after 30 years and revisits it. You know, you'd love to see what his impressions are.
Right, how different they are. What about you here?
Well, yeah, things have changed quite a bit since then. You know, we went from a blue to a bright red state, you know.
Neon.
Yeah.
I'm working on that.
Yeah. And but we've gotten a lot of amenities since then. You know, we have the Alaska Performing Arts Center and all the rest of it. You know, that has come in.
Yeah, roads.
In the '80s.
Septic systems, go crazy, airports.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed. You had said earlier, Joe, that you were in Valdez when the first oil came through, and that was the change for this state. That was like one of the most tremendous changes, not only the culture of people that came here to work, but you know, this wealth that the state had. And you were there. Can you talk a little bit about that day?
It was a day like all others, except that the oil arrived. And the Anchorage Times, which was then still the dominant paper in the state, had been building up to this day ever since the first discovery of Prudhoe. And you know, this was the biggest thing since statehood, and in some ways even bigger, because this was the economy for the next several generations. And the people who were there, who had been there, it wasn't that big a deal because they were doing the same things they've been doing for months, you know, with their work. But it was a big event. The first oil comes through. And I remember most distinctly the Miss Valdez oily T-shirt contest. That once the first barrel had been loaded onto a tanker, the attention shifted to a platform in the middle of town, and anybody who wanted to enter just had to have oil poured all over their T-shirt, and then they paraded around, and a couple of hundred obnoxious male supremacists hooted and hollered and then voted for the winner. And then someone started playing music, and some of the guys thought that it'd be fun to dance with the contestants, not just the winner. The winner quickly left and set up shop in a trailer 2 blocks away. And I think she entertained a number of the oil workers that afternoon, her special victory prize celebration. But I remember that the Valdez Fire Department finally had to shut it down by turning a fire hose on the stage. And all these drunks and oily T-shirt girls were just blown off the thing by the fire hose and all went tumbling ass over tea kettle. And this is it. Alaska has really begun now. The oil is here.
What a wonderful story. You know, I think it would be interesting to follow the developments of industry in Alaska and have it right alongside with the good, hardworking sex workers that have you know, I think they follow. And they said, I heard someone say once that when they found gold, they knew they had found it because the girls showed up the next day, that they were right along there with it. Were there any?
Well, when I was here in '75, correct me if I'm wrong, you or Tom, I believe Nellie Brown was still alive, and she was said to be the first white woman ever to have come to Anchorage. And she was living in a pioneer home in Palmer then, and she would give out interviews only for money. And I didn't, she'd be giving out things for money for many years, you know, but I did never go up and see her, but you know, she came up here to ply her trade, which was prostitution, and she stayed and prospered for many years. But that's, again, how short the history of Alaska is. The first non-native woman to live in the biggest city in the state was still alive. You know, that's showing how compressed everything is, you know, from statehood to Prudhoe Bay to the completion of the pipeline. So much happened in really a relatively short span of years. Very true.
Tom?
When I first got here in 1967, I worked at the Anchorage Times, and we used to go for dinner and drinks afterwards at the Club 25 down the street from the Times. And Nellie would always be sitting in there at a table, and she'd be sitting there nursing an oldie beer. And if you bought her a drink, she'd tell you stories about the old days. And so you say, you know, Mert, buy Nellie a drink. And Nellie would say, make that a Chivas Regal. And she got her Chivas Regal, and she just sit there and hold forth.
And hold court with people, I'm sure, with her stories.
Oh, she was great. Yeah. She was Sidney Lawrence's girlfriend, I understand, too. When he was
well, a muse as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. I've talked to people and said, oh yeah, Anchorage, there used to be a place with, you know, it was a bar that had monkeys. And they go, what the hell are you talking about? In Anchorage, Alaska, there was a bar full of monkeys and they weren't like the patrons? I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. And you can't explain, and I think one of the things that I love about this book is that you captured a time that was very short, that was very specific, that was this snapshot that was really honest, and it was honest enough people didn't like it. And
some people didn't
like it, but that, I think, you know, that's one of the things about your book is that everybody likes it when you tell the truth. Oh, yeah. We're going to be back with questions for our guests on Moore Up North.